Aloha! What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode number 149 of Truth in Movies. I'm JayDreamerZ, and this segment is the one where we decode movies so that I can share with you the deeper level, the deeper story, the esoteric story, the truth that we pull out of these movies. Today's movie is called Oblivion. It's Tom Cruise movie. Morgan Freeman's also in it, back from 2013. And we're going to start things off. Thank you very much for the thumbs up, everybody in the chat. We're going to start things off with the opening scene, the movie production companies that bring you these movies. So you're going to see this one. You'll see this in a lot of movies where they have the Universal logo that comes in, but let's examine it, because a lot of times they actually hide little breadcrumbs, little Easter eggs within the logos themselves. The production companies give you, they got all kinds of popcorn falling right now. The production companies give you little Easter eggs as to what the movie is going to be about, what they represent, what kinds of truths they're sharing with you. So we see an image of the Earth to begin with, but then we see some kind of a spaceship off in the distance. We're going to talk more about this spaceship and what it really is, and as we get into the movie, but it's called the Tet. Keep that in mind. So we see the spaceship hovering over the Earth. They do this in the new Greenland movie too. So if you watch Greenland Part 2, which I'm going to decode the moment it comes out, you'll see the same thing. They do the same one with the Universal logo. And there's a lot of moon symbolism that you're going to see coming into play. So the words come out as usual, but then whenever you see the Earth and it's kind of put far away, it looks a little bit different. So let's zoom into this, right? You might not have caught this if you didn't look closer. Let's take a closer look, as usual. Now we have the continents and stuff. We've got all kinds of ice up here. This looks like Canada, and it's reaching up and physically touching something else, a lot of snow at the top. And then we have what looks like a gash in the Earth that's going in the Arctic. I mean, not the Arctic, in the Atlantic, right? You see this gash in between the continents? Let me zoom out a little bit so you can see it better. Here's South America, right? Here's Venezuela up here, which is now a part of the United States, apparently. And if we look, we can see this gash in the Earth. It almost kind of resembles a crack in the Earth. Keep that in mind. I'm going to break that down. So we start things off with a character named Jack. You're going to hear a lot of Jacks. A lot of Jacks in the movies, and they're going to be the main character quite often. There's a good reason for that. I'll share that with you. All right. Somebody said it looks like the moon. Ooh, you're onto something. All right. So Jack says Earth before the war. So before the war, they're showing a view from the top of the Empire State Building. I've stood right there. I've looked through that binoculars thing, and it faces the One World Trade Center. It faces the southern portion, I think, of Manhattan, basically. So, Earth before the war. We're starting on a tower. Remember this. He says, I know I'm dreaming, but it feels like more than that. This is the tone of the movie. I know I'm dreaming. So this is really deep. That gets into the concept that I call the fractal verse, the concept that we know that we're dreaming, that we live within a dream. That's why I am JayDreamerZ, and I resonate with the whole reality is basically a type of a dream. And I'm okay with that, because to me, it's reality, because I'm inside of the dream too. He says it feels like a memory. Memories are going to come into play in this. What do we remember from times long forgotten, or auld lang syne? So he's having this flashback to some other life, to the past. And then he wakes up. It's time to wake up, right? The times we live in now are the times to wake up. He says it's March 14th. 2077. The year 2077. I thought to myself while watching this, I've heard that year before. I've heard that year before in relationship to the apocalypse or the post-apocalypse. As a matter of fact, there's a video game. The year 2077 in this video game called Cyberpunk 2077. A post-apocalyptic world. In the movie or the TV show, but also especially in the video games, Fallout, there is the Great War of 2077, as you can see there. And it ushers us into this post-apocalyptic world. We have Stargate SG-1 that featured a particular episode where the main characters some aliens put like a vision of reality or a false reality or a dream into their head, where the main character, whose name is Jack, by the way, Jack wakes up in the year 2077 in the episode called Out of Mind. And the Earth is facing a new threat larger than the aliens, etc. It's basically a post-apocalyptic world that he wakes up into in Stargate. And in the show Continuum is also set. A time traveler goes from the present day into the future, into the year 2077. And we have this interesting way that they're doing the Vesica Pisces over here with the two crescents and the eye. A television series that I broke down and decoded called Loki also features this world that Loki visits called Lamentis 1. A purple world where if you look behind me, you can kind of see there's like these concentric circles down there. It's a mining world, right? And he looks up. Loki goes to this world and he looks up and he sees the moon, and the moon has a huge rift in it. The moon, whatever moon this is, it's Earth's moon. I'm just going to tell you right now, okay? They'll tell you it's some other planet's moon. It's never some other planet's moon. It is always our moon. It is always our world that they're showing to you. They're just showing you different epochs and different ages that our world goes through, and they're calling it alien, and they're calling it science fiction and fantasy. But in the year 2077, Loki is on this planet called Lamentis, which is about to be destroyed by the moon that is cracking open and breaking open. And it has a crack in it exactly, nearly identical to the crack that you can see right here. I wish I could make it a little bit brighter, but you can see that crack. Or is it a crack? It kind of does resemble a crack, doesn't it? You see that crack in the earth that goes all the way up there? Huh. We're going to definitely take a close look at that. Anyways, in Loki, it's a purple world, which is showing you the purple dawn of creation of this world. When our world starts off, we go through a color spectrum shift. Okay, we didn't always have all these multitude of, 149, however many crayon colors that we have today. We had simpler colors going further and further back in time. We had less colors going further and further back in time. Less shades of different colors. Until we go back to the beginning when everything was dark. And the first color to emerge in this world is purple. It is a purple dawn. It is a foggy purple world. But anyways, in the TV show, the moon itself is crashing down to the earth. And Loki and the other Loki chick, they feel like they're about to die. Okay? The moon falling to the earth. This whole Oblivion show is about the moon. This whole Oblivion movie is about the Earth and the moon and the apocalypse and their relationship to one another. Now, Jack starts off by narrating and he says, "It's been half a century since the scavengers destroyed our moon." So some sort of alien race or somebody destroyed the moon. Then I think to myself, I've seen this so many different times in fiction, in pop culture, in advertisements, in movies. The moon being destroyed. Why is that etched into our collective subconscious mind that one day the moon would be destroyed? Because the moon will be destroyed one day. When you have a different cosmological view and a different perspective and you understand what the moon really is, how it's created, what it comes from, and that there's two different moons. There is a projection, a hologram, a light, a luminary in the sky that we call the moon, that we believe to be the moon. And then there is the source of that light, which is a portion of the firmament or the dome that's above us that I call the apex dome. Something happens, and when that apex dome breaks open or rips open or explodes or tears open, we will see that projection break open and rip open and tear open. But this isn't the only movie that features the moon ripping open. He says we were forced to leave. The scavengers, the aliens, were forced to leave their dying planet and come and take ours. This is quite literally, according to tradition, the story of the Anunnaki. Keep that in mind too, okay? Because that story is relevant. But anyways, obviously we have the moon breaking open in Lamentis 1 in the Loki series. We have the movie Time Machine, one of my favorites. I can't remember if I decoded this one or not, but I should if I haven't, because I love this movie. In the movie Time Machine, this time traveler from like the late 1800s goes way into the future, and when he looks up, the moon has cracked open. You know who cracked open the moon in that movie? Humans. We did that. We were mining on the moon, and the moon cracked open in the movie Time Machine. Keep that in mind because it's relevant. In the movie Superman, one of the many versions of Superman, he's having this sort of vision, and it's like an apocalyptic vision. There's all these skulls, and he's sinking down. That's not Superman. That's like the bad guy. But anyways, behind the bad guy, you can see in the future, in the post-apocalyptic world, in the Superman movie, they just show you this briefly, okay? The moon is broken. The moon is cracked open. The moon has a rift in it. In Doctor Who, they show you an episode where the moon is cracking open and breaking open, and it's actually an egg. In this particular episode, they show you that the moon is an egg, and there is a dragon being born out of the moon. The moon bursts open, and a dragon, a serpent, comes out of the moon and is born out of the moon. It's highly relevant if you understand that a dragon and a serpent is symbolic. Is a symbolic representation of plasma, which is just on the other side of our dome. We have a manga. I forgot the name of this manga. What was this manga's name? Man, some of you that read manga might remember the name of this. I can't remember it. But in this manga, some bad guy destroys like most of the moon, blows a hole in it, 70% of the moon. We've got Thundar, the Barbarian, an old school 80s cartoon from when I was a kid. And in the intro to Thundar the Barbarian, you can see the world that they live in, just like Conan's world, just like He-Man's world. That's all Earth, okay? It's not some other place. It's not like somewhere out there. I'm just going to pretend. Wrong. These people are tapping into Earth's ancient history where the moon was once shattered. There was a time before the moon. There's a time when the moon will end. The moon will break. The light will turn off. Okay? Sonic the Hedgehog features a bad guy that blows up the moon. This is in a museum. This is a beautiful work of art. This is a museum piece, an exhibit by the artist Saad Qureshi. And he features this artistic work depicting the time when Muhammad looked up, the Prophet Muhammad within Islam. He looked up, and to prove that Allah was God, he was asked to make the moon rip in half, to tear the moon in half, to break the moon in half. It says here from the Quran, the last hour draws near and the moon is split asunder. This is a prophecy of the last hour. This is something the Quran predicts will happen in the future. And it doesn't matter to me, what religion a person is. Using comparative mythology and just comparison in general, we can see that this is a trope and this is a theme that is found everywhere. Okay, so this is just one example. The last hour draws near, the moon is split asunder. And if they see a sign, a miracle, the people of the earth, they'll turn away. They'll say it's passing magic. When they see the moon split, they'll reject every omen of the apocalypse, not wanting to believe it because it forces them to have a different perspective. It forces a different cosmological view or a perspective of where they live and the earth itself. And what is the earth? What is this place? Where are we? Right? So a lot of people will just dismiss it. They'll say it's magic. They'll say it's technology. For they are bent on giving it the lie, being always want to follow their own desires. They won't believe that the moon is actually splitting open. But there's a couple of different places in historic records, not even just in the Quran, where it talks about people, eyewitnesses who watched this happen and saw the moon split in half or split open. As a matter of fact, I forgot to include this, but there's a government project called Moon Blink, a NASA project, where people reported seeing the crescent moon, the horn of it, splitting off from the rest of it. So there's many different documentations. Here's another example from the Superman movies where I think this is Krypton, and Krypton's moon back there was destroyed by a character named Doomsday, this little golem-looking dude behind me. So Doomsday caused their moon to break open, which is our moon. Assassination Classroom, another anime. They have their moon breaking open. This one's a little harder to see, but let me zoom in on it. She's looking up at the moon and it's all broken up here to pieces. You see that? Cowboy Bebop features the broken moon, the moon breaking open, ripping open. Now, let's take a look at that crack, that rift, okay? Because earlier they showed us this in the opening sequence. It's actually the Mid-Atlantic Rift. Let me jump out of the way so you can get a good view of it here. So between the North and South American continents and Africa and Europe, we have the Atlantic Ocean. Now, what you're looking at now is is that region without water. There is a huge mountain chain. Okay, an underwater mountain chain. It's not a crack, it's a mountain and it goes upwards. And when you look at it like this with normal coloring through a topographic map of, the seafloor, you can see it looks like, it's coming up out of the ocean water. Hold on. Did I come back to that? I might have come back to that. We got a lot to cover. Oh my God, look at all this stuff. Okay, I don't know if I freaking remembered to come back to that or not, but let me just cut to the chase just in case I don't share more images. When you take this exact topographical map of the Earth without ocean water and you invert it and turn it upside down, you have what you saw at the beginning of, which it will look like a crack instead of, it's coming out like a mountain, it will look like a crevice. I think I do cover that later on. I don't know why I was being suspenseful and sharing this little teaser with you early, but I'm going to explain how this mid-Atlantic ridge is the crack in the moon that people think that they see. We'll get to that. All right. Now he says, without the moon, the Earth was thrown into chaos. And then they show you the spire, the Space Needle, from Oregon and how it has fallen to the ground. Not just the Space Needle part, but this top portion has fallen to the ground. The needle portion represents the beam of energy that comes up from the center of the Earth, or the Arctic, the North Pole, okay? The inner Earth depressurizes and those inner Earth gases rush up and ionize. They become light that comes up and shoots up out of the Earth in spires and columns and rods and pillars. And it reaches all the way up to the one in the middle of the Earth, reaches up to the apex dome, which is a portion of the firmament that droops down towards us. So you have a spire, and then it will separate into sort of a Y shape and look to be sort of holding up the moon or another world or the apex dome itself. Now, there's a time when those beams of light retract, just like there's a time when they explode and they appear up out of the Earth. One time is seen as a time of plenty when those beams of light appear, and the other time is seen as a time of mourning or sadness or lacking energy and substance in this world whenever they die, when those gases retract and those plasmas retract. Then they show you this. There's sort of an amusement park all broken down after the apocalypse, but look at all this cloud cover on the ground. That's fog. Fog is shown to you in these post-apocalyptic movies because it's atmospheric depressurization. Rapidly depressurizing the atmosphere will create mist because it pulls the moisture out of the air and it appears and it creates instant fog or instant mist. Rapid depressurization. He says, then came the invasion, right? So after the depressurization, once the dome breaks open, once the sky rips open, or the moon also rips open, right, by extension, then that's when a hole is physically open in the contained world that we live in. So other people, other travelers from other worlds outside and beyond our dome, they can now come in and we can be invaded, if that's how you like to, if that's how you want to see that. Some people will see it as an invasion. Some people see it as a rescue. It all depends on your perspective. We used the nukes. So he's talking about the aliens coming down during the apocalypse and nuclear war happening. I'm going to tell you right now, there is no nuclear war. Okay. These huge craters and crevices that they're showing you and the danger of nuclear bombs blowing up and stuff is actually gigantic electrical strikes from that plasma that is outside of the dome. When the dome breaks open and a hole opens up in the sky, that plasma will come down in and it will shock the Earth, leaving pop marks, just like this, just like how lightning does. 309 just gave a bunch of free JayDreamerZ memberships in the chat. So heads up to everybody in the chat and congratulations. So we use the nukes. This is how we interpret these things. It must be nuclear bombs. It must be us. It must be us that caused this apocalypse. When in reality, it's nature that's causing the apocalypse. We won the war, but we lost the planet. And then they show you Washington, D.C. Look what's still standing. We have this Washington Monument, which is basically a giant lightning rod. So it makes sense that there's no giant crater around that. And then across from that is a dome all the way on the other side. This is an electrical circuit, basically. They're trying to draw electricity towards the dome and away from this spire right here. But that's another story. We left it contaminated. So the Earth is contaminated. He's talking about radioactive contamination. There will be radioactive contamination or radioactivity because of the influx of gamma rays and X-rays and all the things that are coming down from the cosmos, cosmic radiation beyond the dome that comes into this world. There's also different types of radiation from the Earth itself. Actually, the Earth is starting to kick off a whole bunch of radiation right now, releasing massive amounts of radiation in the ocean. If you've been paying attention to my omens segment, where I talk about the omens of the apocalypse. So, radioactive shrimp is what I'm actually referring to at the moment. So we can look and we can see these huge holes in these little bays, right? That are left behind. He says what remained of humanity had to leave the Earth. So humans had to leave the Earth, right? They all had to go somewhere. So he says we built the Tet, this spaceship, and this triangular spaceship for some reason, our mission control. So Jack, the storyteller, is saying all the humans went up into the sky during an apocalyptic event. And they went up to this thing in the sky, which is called the Tet. Now let's focus on the Tet. He says it's a temporary space station before the migration to Titan, which is just the word Tet with a suffix added to it. Teton, Titan, etc. It's all the same word, okay? All right, cool. Saturn's largest moon. So there's another moon reference, right? Saturn and moon symbolism there. So all the people went up. He says everyone's there now. Everyone went up into the sky and everyone is not on the Earth anymore. Some people were left behind like Jack, as we'll see. So let's look at the word Tet. In Vietnam, we have the Lunar New Year that is called Tet, and it's associated with the moon, the Lunar New Year, associated with this word called Tet. What is Tet? This is Tet in Paleo-Hebrew, also in Phoenician. We have a circle with an X going right through it. Now, their spaceship doesn't look like that. Their spaceship looks like a triangle, and I'm going to explain why it does. Why their spaceship doesn't look like this. But if you pay attention, oftentimes spaceships do look like that. So that's the Tet. What is the Tet, though? Right? In ancient pictographs, it was drawn as a circle with an X through it. Just like the hold on, I don't know if the alerts are, I don't know if you guys can hear these alerts. Do you guys hear these audibly? Let me turn this up. Let me check. Pictographs, it was drawn as a circle with an X through it. Just like the... Oh, it seems to be fine. Okay, I'm going to ignore that. Okay, cool. Sweet. I'll leave those alerts up. Anyways, just like the X-Men symbol, right, from the X-Men, this is how the 9th letter of the Phoenician and Hebrew alphabet was drawn. Just like this, a circle with an X right through it. In Canaanite, it was drawn the same way, just tilted. In Egyptian, it was drawn the same way. In Hebrew, it was drawn the same way. In Phoenician, going on and on. This is what they were depicting. This is what they were drawing. This is the Tet. This is the circular land at the North Pole that is cross-sectioned by 4 rivers. Now, directly above that land, there is a sort of mirror, which is the apex dome, which is made out of a reflective material, which is ice, pure ice. So when you shine light all the way up at it, then you can see the ice. Hold on one sec. I'm going to turn my volume down. That way I don't have to hear the alerts. Okay, thumbs up if you could still hear me. Okay, I turned my volume down. That way it doesn't bother me when I hear the alerts because I can actually hear it on my side. All right, so this is what you're looking at. That's the Tet, okay? That island mass right there. That shape is seen in the sky because the sky reflects the Earth. And therefore, the moon, which is a part of the sky, which is the sky actually, reflects the Earth back down to us. We live under a dome. That dome is the moon. That dome is casting its own image into our sky, which we call the moon. But that's not the moon. The moon is actually the dome. Okay, light is passing through the moon. It creates all kinds of stars and the sun and the moon and comets and everything. But we see an image of the firmament when we look up. In ancient times, in antiquity, specifically this is around the Middle Ages, people drew pictures of these anomalous, strange things they saw in the sky. This is one of those pictures where people looked up and they saw a circle with an X inside of it and what looks like lightning or electricity emanating from it. Here it is again. Oftentimes you'll see this hole in the sky, or the apex dome, which is what I like to call it, surrounded by these frilly, puffy clouds, right? This is always across the board how this is depicted, typically. Here it is again. You can just see a larger version of it. You can see it was a spectacle. This was from a newspaper from the time, right? They don't like to teach you about these strange anomalies in the sky. They will dismiss these and they'll say, that's just the sun. They were just watching the eclipse. They just drew it like that because they're stupid and they're dumb and they don't know what an eclipse was back then. And, you know, they thought the world was ending every winter. Yeah, these are the things they teach you in schools. So back to the Tet, okay? So all of humanity in the movie Post-Apocalypse, they built a space station to survive the apocalypse. They all left the Earth. There's only a few people left. This, see how it's a black spaceship too, right? It's basically an upside down black mountain that's missing its top, right? What you're looking at is you're looking up and seeing a reflection of what is below, which is Rupus Nigra, the black mountain at the center of that circular island, or at the Tet, right in the middle of the Tet. That's what people look up and see. A temporary space station before humankind migrated to Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Everyone's there. Now, Jack is on Earth. He's one of these people who are still on Earth, kind of taking care and tending to things. He says, we protect the hydro rigs. So behind me, you can see these machines that are actually sucking water up out of the ocean. Do you see right here? This is the shoreline, when in reality, the shoreline should be all the way up here against the land. They're trying to show you that the water is being sucked out and up in the movie by these machines. In real life, it's from atmospheric depressurization. All of the water will rise up and out of our world. He says these hydro rigs convert Earth's seawater into fusion energy for the new colony. Now, fusion energy is also something that I've seen time and time again. People are striving for fusion energy now, or saying that they are, because it provides a limitless source of energy. The reality is we live in a merchant marine world. Maritime laws, maritime rules, which is contractual, which is based upon money and making money and taking advantage of other people, okay? So they're never, even if they know how to make fusion, which, I mean, I know how to make fusion, and I know that the Earth naturally produces fusion, but they're not going to release that technology because obviously they'll lose a lot of money, okay? In the next world, after the apocalypse, the Earth will create fusion, and the Earth will be energetically amplified. It would be a ridiculous concept to charge somebody for electricity when it's literally in the air all around you, like stimulating your cellular structure. It's everywhere. The amount of electricity that will be in the atmosphere in the world to come and the world that once was will be just as common as knowing how much water is on Earth right now. Which, by the way, that will switch. This water, like I said, will be gone. The drones watch everything, he says. So this is post-apocalypse, all the technology, there's drones, and they watch everything. And these drones come from this ship called the Tet. Now, this is one of his little base camps. This is like a little Jetsons skyrise. This is number 49. As you can see, skyrise number 49. He's tech number 49. He's this huge platform way above these clouds that are always there. The movie doesn't even explain those clouds. That's the fog. They live above the fog, just like in the Jetsons. That's the reason why the Jetsons have all of that. They call it smog and pollution and stuff in the Jetsons. In reality, the Flintstones live just on the ground, like right underneath their feet. Jack Harper, I'm going to come back to the Flintstones too. Jack Harper, Tech 49. So it says Tech number 49 confirmed. 9 plus 4 is 13. Okay, when you see the number 13, it relates to these 13 segments, these 13 partitions or parts to that circular island called the Tet at the North Pole. I don't want to get too deep into it because I don't want to confuse anyone or lose anyone, but 13 refers to the original families that come from Atlantis or come from Hyperborea, and they have survived and left and taken over the world, right? Through advanced and superior knowledge from living for hundreds and hundreds of years, essentially. So here's one of those water rigs that's sucking up the water. Jack says hydro rigs are sucking up the seawater, as you can see here. So this is a post-apocalyptic future where eventually there will be no ocean water. The ocean water disappears. Just as in our world, the water starts to emerge and we get flooded over time. Now, Jack is flying around. He goes into the storm. There's these strange, random electrical storms. I mean, really powerful ones in the post-apocalyptic world. That is also going to happen to us. Okay, we're going to have gigantic, huge, powerful electrical storms that are probably going to be radioactive storms if I'm just going to speak my mind on it and just guess. And the radiation storms are going to be something people are going to want to stay away from. My mom got me this little necklace. I like it. It's got like a little nautical star on it. All right, so he's going through. You can hear the thunder cracking, and he's dodging lightning, right? Jack is going to be symbolic of that blue beam of energy that comes up from the center of the world, or Iga, Jika, Iga, Yggdrasil. It's the same concept, okay? Ig and Drasil are two different words. Yggdrasil is the world tree in Norse mythology. Jack, symbolically, is the world tree, okay? He's also Thor. He's also the god of lightning and stuff like that, because all of those things are the same thing. It's the energy, the geoplasmas that erupt out of the center of the earth. All right, so he's navigating. He's trying to dodge all the lightning that's chasing him around. It's just showing you his association with the lightning. That's all it's doing, okay? Now, he comes up to this huge crater, but when we take a closer look, we notice it's not a huge crater. He lands in the middle of it, and he looks around at the walls of the crater, and he sees World Champions 2017. He's inside of a football arena. But if you look at it, see all this dirt and stuff that's just kind of piled up? You're going to see all of this as a theme throughout the movies and throughout many apocalyptic movies. I'm going to come back to how high up this mud and this dirt goes and how this happens. I'm going to come back to that, so stay tuned. So he takes a break over on this cliff. He's sort of overlooking everything. He's in this icy area now. He's flying around the world. He's in this icy section, which oftentimes is a reference to the Arctic. Okay. Now he gets on this motorcycle. He's flying through the desert, but in the desert, there are these sunken ships, halfway sunk into the desert sand. How is that possible? Not nuclear radiation, not just taking away the seawater, because these ships should not be sunken down into the actual bottom of the ocean. I'll let you think about it, but there is a reason, there's a scientific explanation for how heavy objects could be in the earth, just like you see here. I know you're thinking it's either one of two things. Either the earth rose up and flooded, all this mud flooded everything, or these objects sank down. So we see him on this mission to go look for this drone that malfunctioned. So he's out there looking for it. You can see a submarine. He's passing by another half-sunken ship into the ground off the side here. This is also featured. This is a battleship, or maybe a destroyer, one of the two. That's also featured in the new Greenland movie, Greenland Part 2. So I'm excited to break that one down. It's really good. I mean, as far as symbolism goes. So there he is, traveling through a desert wasteland where the ocean once was, obviously. And he gets up to this crescendo. He looks out onto the desert and he sees something in the distance. It's a little opening. And it's a little rock structure. So at first you might not pay attention. You just see some rocks sticking up out of the ground. Jack walks up to this rock structure because he's getting the beacon from the drone coming from this rock structure. So he goes to check it out. As he gets closer, you can see, wait a minute. Let's take a look. Is that the letter R right there? I see a letter on that rock. Let's check it out. I see R and K. I do see a letter. And then what's going on with these rocks? They almost look kind of like folded in and melted, and I don't know what's going on here, but I see letters on the rocks. Did somebody draw on these rocks? Well, then he looks down and he sees a tunnel. This is a sinkhole, as he's going to call it. And then we see more letters on the rocks. As a matter of fact, I can make out a word. Library. Does that say library? Was this a building? Is this a building that somehow seemed to melt and cave in on itself or something? What's going on here? I'm going to explain it to you. So he looks down. There's an opening. Remember, this is the surface. This is the surface of the Earth. So if that's a building, that means the entire building is way underground, which means there's a lot of mud and dirt and debris and soil and sand covering everything. Or is there? Let's take a closer look at the movie and let's keep going. He says the drone is down a sinkhole. He calls this specifically a sinkhole. What it really is the New York Library. The library in New York, which is featured in many different movies, by the way. You'll know it's the New York one because they oftentimes have the Lion's Gate out front. So to get inside, you have to go between the Lion's Gate, or to go between these two lions sitting down in a sphinx-like pose. Okay, there's a reason for that, because they're showing you symbolically this is a safe zone. This is a safe area. Symbolically, this is a crater in the earth, or hole in the earth, or however you want to see it. I'm just going to cut to the chase. This library represents, symbolically on a small scale, Hyperborea, the land at the North Pole, which is also a valley or a crater in the earth, okay? Anyways, they're showing you this library. They're showing you the two lions between the entrance, right? Lion means light. There are two lights before you go to Hyperborea that you must pass through. You must get between the two lights. Sometimes they make them sphinxes, sometimes they make them lions, but they represent lights that are coming up from the earth. They're two geoplasmas that I call the anode and the cathode of the earth, or the Arctic. Anode and cathode plasma volcanoes of their own separate beams and pillars that shoot up on either side of the central one. Okay, this is also shown to you in Ghostbusters, where they start the movie inside of the same library, right? That same place is also referenced as the necropolis of the earth, the place of the dead, the land of the dead, not on the surface, but just below the surface, where all of those gases are drawn to on earth. It's Hades, it's hell, it's Sheol, it's the underworld. And you will, if you were able to go down there in the Arctic, under the earth, just under the surface, you would see plasmas all over the place, right? You would see all these different ghosts and stuff. So this is where the Ghostbusters are, New York Public Library at the beginning of that movie. This is the safe haven and the safe place for the movie The Day After Tomorrow, which, you know, they're showing you this little world in the library. And it's basically also Atlantis because it's the center of the world. It's Hyperborea, you know what I mean? And that's why they show you this huge wall of water coming towards them. Greenland Part 2 also shows you that same symbolism. Jack has located drone 172. Now he's starting to come up out of that sinkhole. So, let me get to A Boy and His Dog. I have decoded this one as well. In the movie A Boy and His Dog, an old movie from the 70s about a post-apocalyptic world, this is what the landscape looks like. For the entire movie, this guy's walking around with his dog, right? There's more to it than that, but you'll have to go watch my decode on it. The landscape, this is the surface world. But all throughout this movie, there are scavengers that are digging into the surface, and they go down into houses and malls. As a matter of fact, you'll see this all the time in different movies. Maze Runner had featured this, where there's all this sand and there's all this soil and stuff, and people dig holes and they open up into houses and malls and stuff. I think they even show you that also in The Day After Tomorrow, right? So what's going on? right? Was there just an abundance of mud caking the earth? Like, did it rain mud, or what's the deal? Where is all this soil coming from? Because people excavate today and they go down 50, 60 feet and find houses under the earth. What's going on? Where's this abundance of soil and mud? Obviously, it must have started as mud, unless just soil rained down onto the earth somehow. Here you can see in Boy After Tomorrow, a boy and his dog. That's the top of an electric pole, which means it keeps going, right? Which means he's 20, 30 feet up from the original surface, or the original surface is 20 or 30 feet down and sink into the earth. This also represents that same Tet that you see in the movie Oblivion that I just showed you guys. Okay, this is sort of his entrance into the underworld. It's also Rupus Negra, etc. But this happened in real life, and people today are catching on, and they're calling this the mud floods. And what this is worldwide liquefaction. Whenever all of those gases, those geoplasmas, are erupting throughout all the cracks and crevices of the earth, it's shaking. It's causing earthquakes, literally, across the earth. The whole earth is shaking. When you shake up the whole earth, the waters will rise to the surface, and everything will become muddy, and all the heavy, solid, and dense structures start to sink down, straight down into the mud, into the earth itself. And people will dig these up. And this is why we can see 60 feet of soil, right? Mainstream academics will tell you, and this happens, there's examples of this. This happens to be the Temple of Artemis, by the way. But there's examples of this across the world and across time. You can dig anywhere pretty much on Earth and hit some kind of civilization underground, or ruins underground, just like this. Okay. And you'll see all of this in mainstream academics, and it's perfectly preserved up and down. Academics says, no, it's just flooding after flooding after flooding, leaving deposits. It's like, did the whole earth flood? Because if it did, then you have to acknowledge the flood of Noah and the ark. Right? You have to acknowledge the deluge. Or is there something else? Did these objects sink down, straight down into the earth? And then once everything started shaking, the earth, the mud started to solidify very quickly as the water drained from it. And it just gives you soil. That's what I think. Here's some more pillars from the Temple of Artemis, over in Europe. It even says here, home of Artemis, right? Here's some of the pillars of Artemis. Now let's take a look at Artemis, because Artemis plays a part into this movie and our modern world. And you better pay attention, because you're going to see the moon blow up. I'm calling it right now, okay? Those of you who hear my voice, you will probably live to see the moon blow up or rip apart in some fashion or form. It's my intuition telling me this, okay? Can't prove it. Anyways, why is Artemis the goddess of the moon? Now we're talking more about the moon, right? So we went from the Temple of Artemis, an apocalyptic event happening that sank these structures down into the earth, and then Artemis's connection to the moon itself, being a moon goddess, the goddess of the hunt, the goddess of the moon, Artemis, and recent space missions to the moon that are called Artemis. The Artemis moon missions. By the way, I did a really good breakdown on the Artemis moon missions on my regular videos playlist. Go check that one out. Everybody's loving it. Artemis moon missions, right? So we have this triangle, and there's this path going from what I assume is the firmament, or the dome, or the earth, going through this opening, which is basically a type of delta, and delta means opening. But delta means door. A delta is a triangle. A triangle is symbolic of an entrance or an exit, an opening in something, a door, a gateway. Okay? And there's the path that goes from the earth all the way through this opening to the moon. This is the Artemis moon mission program. NASA says that they're trying to go back to the moon. If you watch this entire presentation, you will learn what they're really trying to do. They are not trying to go land on the luminary up in the sky. They're doing something far more dangerous and far more nefarious. I'm excited to share it with you. Anyways, this is the symbol for the patch for the Artemis moon mission. It's got like sort of a triangle with the corners chopped off there. It's a black looking diamond shape. And this is a clip from my breakdown of the astronauts being interviewed. As I said, you should go check that out. Check out that presentation. And you can see behind me, I superimposed the Superman logo. There's a reason why they're choosing this particular shape, this sort of diamond looking shape for Superman and for the Artemis mission. Right? There's a specific reason why. Now, this right here, at first glance, you might not see what this is, but this is the symbol for Atlantis. If you watch the Stargate Atlantis shows and stuff, if you watch the cartoon movie Atlantis, they always show you this instead of the A for Atlantis. They always put a little circle above this as well. But try not to look at the image. Try to look what is in between the image. Do you see a shape there? Does it look familiar? It's here in Stargate SG-1 with the circle right above it. And here it is again. It's the same exact shape. I put the shape and it fits perfectly right here. I just had someone on my channel, London. Me and London were talking about the moon. And London saw when I sent him this in an email, and he said I put the diamond back into the rough. And anyways, it's an inside joke, but I love it. Okay, now let's get back to the crack in the moon and the moon breaking open and splitting open. What does that have to do with this topographical map of the ocean without any water? I will show you, and I'll explain to you now what I gave you a preview of earlier. This is the ocean without any water, which is what the world will look like after all of the ocean water gets sucked up during rapid depressurization, where buoyancy increases dramatically in our atmosphere for some time, and things become lightweight and float, including water, will get sucked up and out of the opening in the dome, or in the atmosphere, if you want to see it like that. So here's what the Earth will look like in the post-apocalyptic world, okay? So here it is, and here it is if you invert it. Right, so let's take a look. I've inverted the picture or the colors here, right? And when you invert it and you flip it upside down, it can look like a crack instead of, or a crevice or a trench instead of a mountain range, right? It's all your perspective. If you still see it as a mountain range, you might still see it as a mountain range, but this is an optical effect. It's an optical illusion. And it's very important for us to understand this so that you can understand the strange things that we call craters that you see on the moon, which I'm going to explain right now. You see this hill? See this little mountain? Okay, this is supposed to be a mountain out there in space, okay? You see that? How, you know, it kind of goes upward and it looks maybe like it's sort of flat or something up there on top. Here's the ground, right? There's some more land back there. This mountain right here, if I turn it upside down, is now a crater. Same image. Same exact image. I have flipped it upside down. That's it. It is now a crater. It's a mountain. It's a crater. And it's going to be hard for you to see one way or the other. Like some of you are going to get stuck seeing this as a crater. Some of you are going to get stuck seeing it as a mountain. When you can learn to see the crater as a dome, then you will start to see the moon differently. Because that is what we're seeing on the moon, are domes, not craters. Why? Because the moon, like I said, is a projection. It's an image. And that image is inverted because of the lensing effect from the dome, the optical effect. It creates what's known as a real image, and the real image is inverted and upside down. So if you turn the image upside down and you invert the colors, you will see a dome instead of a crater. Here, I see a dome. These are moon craters allegedly, and I can't speak for you guys watching, but some of you, if you see the light hitting from this angle, you see a dome. If you see the light coming from this way, right, you'll see the light going over the edge here, and then it's a crater. This is also a dome. That's a dome. These are little bubbles on the firmament, because the firmament at some point was liquid and then it froze, or it was gaseous and then it froze, okay? And it turned into ice. That's why these have these little bubbles or domes on the moon. Now, here's the same optical effect on Earth. You see this mountain range going just like that, and you see like these little plateaus and, you know what I mean, stuff like that. Check this out. This is not a mountain range. This is the Colorado River Basin. This is a canyon. It's very hard for me to even see a canyon, but it's an optical illusion. Here it is again. You can try it out, right? Just flip the image upside down. You have a bulge on one side and an indentation on the other. Same thing when people look at the moon. I see domes that have a little apex dome at the top where it droops downwards. You see that right up there? Can I even touch that? Yes, I can. Look at that. That's our firmament. I mean, this is an example of what our firmament looks like. It is a bulge. It's a lens that goes up, and then it droops right down in the middle, right there. And you'll see that all over the place on these moon craters. Now, NASA says they're going to the moon. NASA has drills for the moon. They want to drill into the moon. I shared with you guys that that project paperwork where they have the drill that's going in there to anchor itself to the moon, because I was talking about Project Anchor and NASA and all that stuff. If you haven't seen that one, you should check that one out too. But anyways, they have drills. They're going to drill into the moon. Why? There's not because they're trying to collect deep core samples or anything like that. I'll tell you why. There's a way more nefarious reason why they're drilling into the moon. NASA directive to build nuclear reactors on the moon, says this news article. They're talking about building nuclear reactors on the moon. Keep with me. I know, like, isn't this fun? It's like, what happened to the movie, Jay? What's going on? I thought we were decoding a movie. This is how deep I get. I'm just sharing myself with you guys, okay? I hope you're enjoying the rabbit hole that we're going down. And this is the beginning of the movie. Anyways, we see the moon, right? Nuclear reactor on the moon, question mark? So they're prepping us to get ready for nuclear stuff happening on the moon, which eventually is going to lead to an explosion in the sky. This is from Star Wars, where you see the Death Star, where they say that's no moon, right? Exploding. Here's another image, just an example of the moon being ripped apart, torn apart, exploding, etc. Project Gateway, or the Gateway that they're building, is a space station that they want to orbit around the moon or whatever. NASA's Gateway. A gateway is an opening, okay? They're not building a space station to orbit the moon. The real moon is the firmament. They can get up close and try to look at the firmament up close, but if they're going to make a gateway in the firmament, that means they're going to make a hole in the dome. And that means they're trying to depressurize the Earth. And that will cause the apocalypse. So they can get out. The moon's space station is the gateway, okay? The Sipapu, the opening in the heavens, the Stargate. NASA's trying to make one. They're trying to force it to happen. Now, speaking of a hole in the firmament, a hole in the roof, they'll show you this next up. Jack comes down through a hole in the firmament. It's literally, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a fresco up here drawn on the ceiling of clouds. There's literally a hole in the sky that he comes down in on the movie. And he descends down. Just like the Temple of Artemis, as I talked to you guys about. And he says it's a sinkhole. There's also over 700 sinkholes that have opened up in Turkey recently. The Earth is opening up right now. And if the moon is reflecting the Earth, you might actually see some of that. 700 sinkholes open up in Turkey, sparking wide concern. This is happening right now in the world. Destroying farms, crops. The Earth is just swallowing up farmland in Turkey. And remember, Jack is also in a type of a sinkhole. Okay? Jack has located the drone. They're getting it back. Jack goes down and he falls. So this happens a lot in these movies too. And they show you these people excavating and they're like they open up a mall or something and they have to like rappel down. They almost always show somebody falling down to the bottom. Very dangerous. So I wanted to show this to you because some of you are going to remember this in the post-apocalyptic world. This will help some of you. You need to be careful, okay? This is very dangerous, and that's a long fall all the way back down, okay? This is probably going to happen to some people. You might be walking on what you think is the surface, but it's glass of some roof of some mall somewhere, and it cracks open and just gives way. And next thing you know, you just fall into this sinkhole. As Jack also falls down. Now, some of you may have made the connection of Jack and Jill and Jack falling down, and I'm going to also come back to that. So here we can see the little Jetson skyrise far above the depressurization fog. You can see the moon that is broken open. This is your cue that we are in the post-apocalyptic world where the sky has opened and the world has depressurized. Jack is up here with his girlfriend. They don't explain this at the beginning of the movie, okay? But they're having dinner together. And you can see the broken moon in the background. Anyways, Jack gets onto his little airplane and he's flying through this canyon. And he's just flying through this canyon. You can see there's a waterfall down onto the side over there. There's another waterfall. But when you look at this canyon from a forward view, you can see it's actually buildings. That this is an ancient street. These are high rises. These are skyscrapers on either side, over here and over here. These are structures. And he's flying right through the middle of them like it's just earth, like it's just a canyon, right? And here's the tower. Here's the top, the spire of the Empire State Building. This is not the Empire State Building as far as the building portion. This is just the tower at the top of it. Now look where it begins. There's earth down there, right? This is the very bottom portion. Now, I want to talk about this a bit, okay? You see how there's like these steps? They show you these little steps that go up. This is also symbolic of Mount Meru, okay? Mount Meru is shown to you as an unfinished pyramid because it's a plasma volcano. It's a volcano. So they show you this little unfinished step pyramid base to it, right? And here's the rest of the tower going all the way up. And here's the ground. And here's the other skyscrapers, the tops of them. Like I said, the whole city sinks into the mud during liquefaction of worldwide earthquakes. It's not that all this mud just flooded out from wherever or just rose up from the ground or whatever. It's all this heavy stuff that was built on top, not on bedrock, which we'll come back to, sinking straight down into the earth and being covered up. It's a cover up. It's the earth literally covering up history and resetting our history and our earth. All right, so they show you the tower, they show you the land, everything's sunk down. This is how much it sank, by the way, in the movie at least. That's the tower. All that sank down into the earth. There's no way it's that much mud, covered. Like, where would that even come from? But it sank into the earth. Now, did you know this? On the top of the Empire State Building, there are antennas that produce signals, radio antennas. If I zoom in on this, you can actually see this. They used to have a whole section up there. It says the Empire State Building houses this antenna devoted to sending the NBC television programs out over the waves. At present, NBC broadcasting 15 to 20 hours of television. This is an old article, by the way, okay? But my point is, there's all of these many different antennas up there. This whole section right here that Jack is about to walk into used to be a whole radio. They had all these different radio stations and stuff, and all these little spikes that you see sticking out of the sides. These are all antennas putting out frequencies all across New York. Do you believe that it's just radio stations? Do you think that? I don't. Do you remember the movie They Live? We also decoded that one. They had an antenna at the top of their little radio station tower, skyscraper, whatever. And that was a signal that was being put out throughout the city to put people into a sleep state where they couldn't recognize the aliens that lived among them. And they couldn't see the reality of the world they lived in. They were just walking around as sleepwalkers. They couldn't lucid dream. Anyways, so Jack gets back to the observation deck of the Empire State Building. He walks up. He sees that same thing he remembers from his, memory of the past before the apocalypse. And you see the radio tower. Jack says they have some kind of a repeater. A repeater is a signal that's coming out of this tower. The scavs, they call the aliens scavengers, which it's not really aliens, it's just humans. I'll spoil it right now. The scavs are using the building as an antenna. They're using the building as an antenna. Same thing in Ghostbusters. They use the skyscrapers as antennas. What better way to send a signal up to the firmament, and whatever humanoids may live on the firmament, may or may not live on the firmament. You want to send a signal up to the aliens. Those are the ones you're going to try to talk to. I believe that there's people that live up there. In myth, they call them frost giants and stuff like that. But anyways, I don't think they can send a frequency outside of the dome. I think they're talking to people that live up there on the firmament. But anyway, so they're using the building, the skyscraper, as an antenna. She says, why would the scavs send a signal off planet? Why are they trying to send a signal off planet? That's something to consider. Now, he's driving around, flying around in his airplane, and it says on this little smart screen, which you'll probably start seeing this in the near future, where they just have smart glass in your cars and your planes and stuff, and it can overlay images for you. It says, impact distance, radiation zone. That radiation will cook you from the inside before you know it. So he's really scared. There's this wall in front of him, and it says radiation zone. Don't go near the radiation zone. The movies kind of indicate that there are radiation zones, but then there's false ones that people say are radiation zones so that you stay away. You people who have no technology to test out radiation to see if there's actually is radiation in that area. But the people who do have the technology can just lie to you and say it's a radiation zone. Don't go there. There are radiation zones, though, and I'm going to explain those too. In the post-apocalyptic world. He says, I'm going to do a perimeter check before I head home. So he's going around the perimeter of something. And he's right where this sort of wall is. Do you see that? This red wall? I talked about this red wall and what it is in the Garden of Eden when I broke down and decoded the movie Tron Ares. So if you're interested in this electromagnetic dome that surrounds the Garden of Eden, which is what this is, outside of it is high areas of high radiation. So if you live just outside of the Garden of Eden, you will mutate. I guarantee you. You're going to become a mutant. And there will be all kinds of tribes of mutants that live in the Arctic just outside of Eden, or just outside of Hyperborea. So that's where he is right now symbolically. He's patrolling the perimeter. Now he leaves the perimeter and he goes into the center of wherever he is. And he looks down, he says, that's right, Bob. He's got this little bobblehead of Elvis. He calls him Bob. You know where we're going. Now, he looks at Bob. He's talking to you, though. He says, you know where we're going. Showed you the perimeter, showed you the electromagnetic plasma that's coming up out of it, and this is the Garden of Eden. You know where we're going. He's about to go to the Garden of Eden. He's about to go to Hyperborea. He's returning to Hyperborea, which is the name of my second book, which discusses all of this. So check it out on my website, JayDreamerZ.com, if you'd like to. You know where we're going, he says, and then everything starts turning green as he's navigating through these crevices, and he goes through what looks like a cave entrance. And I've talked with you, and I tell you guys in my book about how to get into the Garden of Eden. There's a couple different ways. There's an easy way and there's a harder way. But he goes through, he chooses the easy way through the cave, basically. And he comes through and, wow, look at that. It opens up into a paradise in a post-apocalyptic world. Not just a paradise. Don't take it for granted. Look at the physical structure of this region. He's in a valley. Obviously, there's a mountain he just came through. There's one on the other side. It seems to keep on going. He's in a valley. He's in a hidden valley. He's about to go to a hidden valley ranch. In the middle. You see that? He's in the middle of a crater. In the middle of a valley. That is the crater world at the center of our Earth at the North Pole in the Arctic. Okay? A land that used to be on a multitude of maps from the Dark Ages and Middle Ages. So you can see there's water there. There's a lake. It's green shrubberies everywhere. He's got a little basketball court. And then they play some music. Do you see how it says classic rock music playing? Well, I love it when they do that because I pause the movie. I look up the lyrics to the song because I know the lyrics are about to match this esoteric story that I'm reading into. So let's check out the song that's playing. It says, the leaves are falling all around. Time I was on my way. So somebody's saying they need to get up and go. It's autumn. The leaves are falling. Hold on. Let me make this bigger. Thanks to you, I'm much obliged for such a pleasant stay. But now it's time for me to go. The autumn moon lights my way. For now I smell the rain and with pain, and it's headed my way. So this person doesn't want to leave, but he has to go wherever he is. He's been having a nice time staying wherever he is. It's called Ramble On by Led Zeppelin, by the way. He goes on to say, and though our health we drank 1,000 times, it's time to ramble on. So they're drinking to their health. Wherever he is in this song, he's in a place that gives him better health. Esoterica44, thank you so much for the super chat. In the next verse, it says here, check this out. I tell you no lie. This is truth in music too, okay? They're all talking about this, the Hyperborea, return to Hyperborea, the apocalypse, all the things I'm sharing with you. I tell you no lie, okay? Mine's a tale that can't be told. This is a secret. This is the secret. Hush, hush. Don't talk about the apocalypse. Don't talk about Hyperborea. Don't tell people where paradise is. Mine's a tale that can't be told. My freedom I hold dear. If I tell you this crap, they're going to take my freedom away. They're going to take my money away. They're going to put me in jail, kill me, whatever it may be. These are the secrets of the Freemasons. My freedom I hold dear. How years ago in days of old antiquity, ancient times, when magic filled the air, 'twas the darkest depths of Mordor, I met a girl so fair, but Gollum and the evil one crept up and slipped away with her. This is all poetry. This is a riddle, just so you guys know. Okay, you need to start listening to the lyrics of your songs, your favorite songs, and figuring out what the hell they're talking about. Instead of just saying, "Oh, I like it. It's probably about a girl. It's probably about a boy." No, it's definitely not. Okay. I got to keep on searching for my baby, but not just his baby, his bluebird. I can't find my bluebird. His baby is a bluebird. I listened to what my bluebird said, but I can't find my bluebird. Does this sound like a riddle to you? Come on. It's a riddle. They're begging some of you to figure this out. The bluebird of happiness. It's the thunderbird. It's the phoenix. It's the beam that shoots up and spreads its wings at the center of the world. It's the tree of life. That's the bluebird. The bird of creation. Anyways, back to the movie. Oh yeah, that's right. So Jack sees that there's all these little white fragments of this ship that has crashed, and there's pods, and there's people in those pods. He says, "Tower, we've got survivors." So he walks up to one of these pods. He sees there's this girl. Note the hexagon. He sees this girl. Notice the amber color in the hexagon, okay? That's some bee symbolism, just so you guys know. He sees this girl in this little life pod, and there's many of these life pods all around. He goes, they're human survivors. Oh my God. And then the drones come, they scan it. The drones see that there's humans in these pods. And what do? Poof! The drones kill them. They blow them up. Jack can't believe it. He thought the drones were the good guys, that they're, supposed to help out and only programmed to kill the aliens, the scavengers, the weirdos that took over the earth and, infiltrated the earth. So we've got one of these little drones right here floating in the air, and it's going around decimating all the survivors in those pods, killing them all. It points to Jack, and Jack has to tell it his identity. Jack Harper, Tech 49 or Tech 49 or whatever, right? He tells him this so it'll recognize him as someone who's on their side. So it stands down and it goes away. He's like, back off. But it says terminate. These are literally terminators. These are machines in the post-apocalyptic future that have their own sentience, that have a mind of their own. This is the robot rebellion. Your machines on Earth right now will have a mind of their own with all of that energy that's going to be ambient in the atmosphere everywhere. An electrically amplified atmosphere will lead to a robot rebellion. All the machines will just turn on. They'll do whatever they feel like doing, within the limitations of their physical structure. If they are programmed to go and kill, they can go and kill. If they're programmed to go chop things, they'll go and chop things. If they're programmed to set fires, they'll set fires. You know what I mean? So this is the robot rebellion. You have to be very careful with robots in the future. They'll turn on all by themselves, just like they did in the Carrington event. If you don't believe me, look it up. In the 1800s, there was so much electricity in the atmosphere, the machines turned on and stayed on by themselves and attacked people. So Jack and his girlfriend, okay? We're going to break this down because I'm going to break down the names. This is very important. All right? All of this is very important. Jack is carrying the little pod of the survivor girl that he's actually been having dreams about. That's his wife or his girlfriend or whatever. We're not told how they got together. You know, we don't really feel a connection between them except for a sexual one. Jack. Let's start with that. The name Jack. You can apply this to every movie where you have a character named Jack, okay? Every one of them. Jack is Jacob. They're the same name. Jack is just a short nickname. It's been nicked. It's been shortened into from Jacob. So Jacob has been nicked into Jack, right? Nick. I'm saying Nick over and over so that hopefully some of you make the connection to the Nicolations in the book of Revelation, okay? Nick, Saint Nick, to break a piece off, okay? Jacob is Jack. What does Jacob mean? Well, I'll tell you. Jacob means somebody who comes afterwards, a follower, somebody that comes after something or someone, okay? So you could say that Jacob implies survivors. You could also say Jacob implies whoever comes up to the surface and replaces all the population that's decimated during the apocalypse, being from two places. One, underground, the inner earth, because right now there are humans down under the earth right now living their lives, okay? And they will, one day, those are going to come up to the surface, okay? You know them affectionately, right, as Gog and Magog, but there's other names for them too. There are humans down inside the hollow earth. They will come up to the surface. There are also humanoids in other worlds up there traveling the fractal verse, and they will come down from that hole in the sky. These are the line of Jacob. These are the replacements. These are the people who come afterwards. These are the survivors. These are the Nemo, or the leftovers, the Nem. Those of the leftovers is Nemo in Proto-Indo-European. Anyways, Vika. We learn her name now, Vika. So what is Vika? Jack, we just learned, right? A survivor. Something that comes afterwards. That blue beam also comes after this age. Okay? And Vika, red hair, light porcelain skin. We've seen that before, but what does Vika mean? The real meaning of the name Vika. Vik is the root of the word, and it's also the root of the word Viking. Viking. The Vikings, who are known, famous for having red hair and porcelain skin. Vik, Viking. Does Vika mean Viking? No, it doesn't. Let's learn what it means, though. We can also learn what Viking means and who were the Vikings. I'll tell you exactly who the Vikings were and what Vik means, which is the root of all of these words. Now, if we look it up in Old Norse, which is where it comes from, Vikingur means pirate. Vikingur means, or implies, I should say, pirate. In Old Norse, it comes from Vik, which means an inlet. It's the portion where the ocean comes into an area of land. So, for example, on that map I showed you of that island at the North Pole, we have 4 inlets where the Arctic Ocean comes into Hyperborea, or vice versa. Okay, it's still an inlet. Joshua Spitfire, welcome to the Good Vibe Tribe. So Vik is an inlet. Ingur means one belonging to. So the Vikings or the Vikings were those who came from the inlets, places where the ocean met the land and went into the land as like a river, right? Or a bay. Pirates, Vikings. Vikings, a lot of people don't associate Vikings with pirates, but they are. They're the same people. The pirates, as I go over in my second book, Return to Hyperborea, are the original people that left Hyperborea. The word pirate comes from pyre, like a funeral pyre, which means light. Ot is just a pluralized suffix. It means those of the lights. Those from the lights. The lights of what? The lights of the earth. The lights of the world. Those geoplasmas that erupted up into pillars and columns as the inner earth gases depressurized. These people fled from those places. They had to. They fled from their islands all over the place. They became seafaring people. Traders as well. We're going to come back to the trader thing, okay? They didn't have land. They couldn't grow anything. They're sea people, as are the Phoenicians, because they're the same people. The Phoenicians, the pirates, the Vikings, all this stuff. They're all related. Remember, I said there's 13 tribes that come from there. So those tribes turned into different names and customs and styles and cultures and stuff. So we've got Jack on one hand. We've got Vika, the Viking chick, the survivor from Atlantis who represents nobility. Those people that survive, okay, from the center of the world, and they go around settling, being nomadic, they end up taking over the world through their knowledge, right? Through their trading, being the traders. You can spell that how you like, but they're the traders. They're the Trader Joes of the earth. So, Vika, the redhead. Jack is the type of Adam, the first man, the blue beam that comes up and looks like a person. The Adam Kadmon, the first person, right? So we've got Jack and his first wife, or Adam and his first wife, Lilith, actually, who's oftentimes portrayed as having porcelain white skin and red hair, sometimes horns and stuff too, but I'm focusing right now on the red hair. Adam and Lilith, Adam's first wife. Now, let's talk about that. Did Eve come first, or did Lilith come first? Let's look at Lilith. Let's examine why she has this flaming red hair and porcelain white skin and the name itself, and being Adam's first wife and her relationship and the symbolism of serpents and tentacles and all that kind of stuff, horns and all that crap. Eve was not the first woman, it says here. And we have Lilith holding the apple. Here's Lilith with the red hair in the garden with Adam. These are just, some random pictures. I wanted to give you guys a good visual for Lilith. Lilith. It's hard to say Lilith. Lilith. The root word of Lilith is L-I-L. The I-T-H at the end is just a plural. Okay? Same thing as Pyrot. Lilot. Same thing. It means many. Many what? Many Lil. What does Lil mean? Well, to figure out what Lil means, we can go back to ancient Mesopotamia. There is a god famously known as Enlil. En means Lord in Akkadian and Babylonian, right? If you look it up, it says Lil. Oftentimes it was interpreted as meaning wind, air, ghost, or phantom. It means wind, okay? There's different ways that wind can manifest, but it means wind, a moving of the gases. That's what Lil means. That's why all these rappers are Lil Bow Wow, Lil Wayne, or whatever, because they're making wind. Hot air usually, but it's, they're wind blowers, okay? I don't know if they know that, but now they do, hopefully. Lil, that's what it means. It means wind, okay? So Lilith means winds. Many winds. That's what it literally means. So, why was Lilith first? Because in the Bible it says, "Then the Lord God formed a man," Adam traditionally, "from the dust of the ground, and breathed," Lil, "into his nostrils the breath of life." That's before Eve was created. So Lilith, technically, came first and made Adam become a living being. So, there's also the red hair connection to the people that come from Atlantis, Hyperborea. The pale white skin is because they're not used to the sun. Okay? They have not adapted to sunlight. The people who live in the Southlands, outside of the North Pole, have to deal with the focal point called the sunlight. At the North Pole, you have this constant ambient light all the time from the geoplasmas that are erupting. Okay? They don't have sunlight. It's not this bright focal point that's just shining down on them all the time that is creating more melanin in your skin and turning you dark. So that's why these people look like this. The orange hair, the red hair, I haven't really dug too deep into that. If I was to guess, I'd have to say it has something to do with their diet, maybe. I don't know, but I don't want to speculate at this particular moment in time. Now, Julia. is her name, the survivor. Jack meets Julia. So let's check out Julia. If we go to Julia and we look up the etymology of Julia, it says from Julia or Julius. See the word Julius. Okay, let's check out Julius. Pertaining to, I'll make that smaller. It says here, pertaining to or descending from Jove, from the Proto-Indo-European Juli, or Deu. Yes, I'm in the way. Sorry. Deu, to shine, which also implies sky, heaven, and God. Deu, as in Deus, as in Zeus, as in all those gods from the sky. Okay? So Julia comes from Julius, which implies shining from the sky, a shining object, a shining thing in the sky. A feminine thing, if I'm going to, talk about Jill or Julia, which is what Jill is. Now, Jack and Jill, that's what you're being shown. Okay, I'm taking the long way around. Sorry, thanks for bearing with me. Julia is Jill from Jack and Jill. If we look up Jill, it says to see Jillian. Okay, let's look up Jillian. It says to see Julius. Same thing. We just went into a circle. So Julia is Julius, which is Jillian, which is Jill. Literally, Jack and Jill. But the wife doesn't like that. Lilith, she doesn't like that. She says, you were in a crash. Jill crashed down to the earth. Your ship came down, she says to her. Jack managed to pull you from the wreckage. Jack and Jill went up a hill to fetch a pail of water. See that? How there's a well up there? Where is there a place where there's a well on top of a hill? Where do people go uphill to get water? Water goes downhill. Water is found in the valleys. Water is usually found in the low places, not way up high on top of a hill. You're looking at a cartoonified version of what I call a plasma volcano, or a volcano that spews out plasma, which is the waters of life, life-giving waters. You could see it the same. It's a type of liquid, okay? Plasma. And this is the opening of the volcano. Jack fell down and broke his crown. Jack is the light that comes up out of this well, which is at the center of the Garden of Eden, where the tree of life grows. He fell down, which means that light retracts. Jesus was crucified and died and went down into the earth. Okay, the light of the world dies. It goes down. Odin was hung on that tree and dies. There's a sacrifice, right? To stop the apocalypse. It's a sacrifice. This light has to die. Every other cycle afterwards, it's the opposite story. This light is introduced. Jack will go up and, the person will be, the god or the goddess will reappear or whatever. But anyways, Jack falls down. That beam of light goes down into the earth. Back down inside as the earth charges. Breaks his crown. The crown is a portion of that apex dome that falls. And it will crash down into the earth every other cycle and break into icebergs all the way around the Arctic Circle, which is also a form of Jill. Jack fell down. That beam of light fell down, broke his crown, which is the circular ring or object above him, and Jill came tumbling afterwards, because that's who Jill is. This is the hill that Jack and Jill went up. If you want to get a copy of this, actually, I do sell these on my website. So I sell what I call mini posters, lots of different cool pictures that I create, just like this one you see here, on my website. This is Mount Meru. This is my interpretation of travelers going to Hyperborea, explorers arriving on the coasts and looking at Mount Meru and the blue beam shooting up, the geoplasmas erupting. This is that mountain. This is the mountain of Jack and Jill. This is the well. This is the spring of life. Now, if you take out the ER, which stands for emergency, right? It says Mu. Mu. Atlantis. Mu. Meru. Mount Meru. The people have seen this. This isn't just in my own imagination where I'm making these pictures. This is a picture somebody drew when they were on an expedition in the Arctic Circle. The appearance of the sky in Leopold. Take a look at this. Somebody saw this. in the, I believe, 1800s. Take a good look. This is an actual drawing somebody made of some phenomenon they saw in the distant sky. I'm guessing towards the north. Take a good look, because you're looking at the beacon. You're looking at the sign. This right here are the walls of Eden that I was telling you about. They're a little dome. They fold in at the middle, and there's a beam of light that comes up and goes down into the earth. As it goes up, it will branch out higher and higher up into the sky. Somebody saw this and drew it. Here it is again in the Book of Miracles from the Dark Ages. In the year 1515, allegedly, according to this document, somebody saw this Hershey's Kisses looking light in the distance. A red one, which I like I said, I broke this down in the movie Tron. Ares, right? This is the dome around the Garden of Eden. And this is the beam of light that shoots high up into the sky. This is that same beacon, that same light. This is my drawing, okay? The hole opens up in the sky. The plasmas swirl around with the clouds and stuff, and you can see that beam of light. Now, a lot of people, especially if you're an Electric Universe fan, which I am, a lot of people see this as it's coming down. This is a discharge from like a planet or something way out there that's coming too close, and it's Nibiru, or you know what I mean? But you have to reverse your thinking. We live in a reversed world, energetically speaking. The light is coming up from the earth. Here's a petroglyph showing the exact same thing that I just drew. This is literally the cover of my book, The Plasma Apocalypse. This is literally a petroglyph I saw after I wrote my book. I'm like, damn, look at that. That's amazing. There's petroglyphs just like this all around the world, showing you the plasma shooting up to the apex dome, which is in layers up there at the top. Here it is again, showing you the column, the pillar, the beam shooting straight up to that ring in the sky, the opening in the sky, the gateway, the doorway, the portal, the moon, the apex dome. It's all the same thing. Here are the Hebrew people traditionally walking towards Sinai, walking towards this pillar that's leading them by day and by night to the promised land, by the way, right? They're following this pillar of light to go to the promised land. Does it sound familiar? It should. So that's what I've been teaching you guys. Here it is again, symbolically, Mary and Jesus on top of this huge pillar surrounded by two witnesses and the clouds all the way around, going up into the heavens where there's a light over her head. Here it is again in the movie Halo, a blue beam of energy shooting straight up. You also have these surrounding things. These would be the mountains, by the way, that come up out of the Arctic Circle. Okay, and there should be a plasma sheath over this, but they didn't include it. But the blue beam shoots up to a ring in the sky, surrounded by all these swirling clouds. A circle in the sky. This is from the movie Interstellar, a poster. That is the beacon of light. That is the beam of light that shoots up to the apex dome up here in the sky. Here it is again in Tron, right? There's the rings, the circular rings, the keyhole shape right there, the beam of light, blue beam shooting up to the ring that he is holding. Tron is holding. Keep that in mind. Jack needs to hold a ring. He needs to hold a circle or a ball or something above his head, as does Tron, as do all these people, symbolically. Godzilla, his blue beam shooting up, same symbolism. We make these. Some people don't know why, but this is what they're symbolic of. This is why they are beacons for hope. These blue beams that shoot up out of the earth. So Jack's asking her, because he doesn't know if she remembers, he says, "What was your mission?" Because she just fell out of the sky. What was your mission? She says it's classified. She works, she's an astronaut for NASA. I'll just tell you guys. She says it's classified. Whatever she was doing up there, it's classified. I mean, she's not even going to tell him after the apocalypse. This is a secret she's taken to her grave, apparently. It's classified. I can't tell you. At least not in front of Lilith over there. He says, do you have any mission? Do you have any memories? No, Jack is talking to his Lilith, redheaded wife or whatever, asking her, do you have any memories before our mission? Their memories were wiped before the security wipe. They say that they wiped their memories, the Earthlings, for their benefit, for security reasons, so that people can't, question them or whatever about what happened before the apocalypse. They lost their memory. She says, our job is not to remember. Now, remember, she represents royalty, red hair, fair skin, right? That's what they tell us. They don't want you to remember. They don't want you to tune in right now and listen to all this stuff and have it all come back to flooding back to the forefront of your mind. They don't want you to remember. If you want to learn more about this worldwide amnesia that happens, how it happens and why it happens, go to my channel and search for these videos. These are all about amnesia, collective worldwide historic amnesia after the apocalypse. Amnesia Island is one. Deadlights, plasma possession, and worldwide amnesia. We've got the great memory wipe of the apocalypse. Go check those out if you're interested in learning how people forgot. Right? Anyways, Jill, Jack and Jill. Let's see, where was I with this one? Here's that beam of light going up to the apex dome that has the name Jehovah or Jove or Yahweh, however you want to pronounce it. Okay? Now, why am I showing you this? Hold on, I was going to try to make a connection here. It had to do with somebody's name. Of Jehovah. Oh, was it Jill? I think it was Jill. I don't know. Let me see what I got coming here. Oh yeah, the chick from the moon. So, the chick Jill. Damn, why didn't I put that on here? Oh, you were in a delta sleep. Hold on, let me see. Why did I make this connection? Jillian. Hold on, let me look it up right now real quick. Jillian. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with those pictures. Jillian. I forgot to make the connection there. It had something to do with Jove. From Jove. Anyways, you'll have to take my word on it just temporarily, okay? Or look it up yourself. But anyways, Jove is this word right here. It's the tetragrammaton. Yod-He, Vav-He, or J-O-V-E, you could say. That's the God above, okay? That's the opening in the sky. That's the apex dome that has light that comes off of it. It's also seen here, the apex dome, surrounded by that cloud. These are the letters up here that are hard to see. Yod-He, Vav-He, or Yud-He, Vav-He. Jove, Jehovah, Yahweh, Yahuwah, however you want to pronounce it. The phoenix, a symbol of light that reborns, rebirths itself or whatever, dies and reborn. The lamb literally means lamp, literally is a light on both sides. Here's the depressurization clouds, the ruffles, right? This is our world. This is the apex dome. This is just a drawing I made. The dome is created by frozen gases. This is the apex dome. That's the moon. That's where Jill came from. She fell down, broke the crown, Humpty Dumpty, all that stuff. This is the delta. So they show you the name Yahweh inside of a triangle, inside of a dome, which is what this is. This is not a sphere. That's not the sun. That's a dome in the sky. That's got light coming out of it because there's plasma on the other side. When this cracks open all the way around the edges, it will fall, and it'll create a new apex dome every time because the firmament heals itself. But I wanted to show you the triangle, okay? The delta. He says when you were in delta sleep. So Jill, that just is an astronaut that fell down from the sky from NASA, was in delta sleep. She was sleeping on the moon. She fell asleep on the moon, or on the firmament, I should say. The delta is the opening, right? The pathway between two worlds. Earth was attacked. Okay, geez, sorry about that. That was a long connection to make. Now, this is her fallen shuttle, her fallen craft that just came from the firmament, the apex dome. If you look at it, it shows you, as she's looking around, all these little white pieces of debris all over the place, scattered about, right? And to me, symbolically, this is Humpty Dumpty, which is the apex dome, okay? The hump in the sky that dumps or falls down. A lot of people will tell you, oh no, Humpty Dumpty was a tank that they put up on a wall for God who knows what reason. No, it's not. That's a rumor. Okay, that's scuttlebutt. That's not true whatsoever. I'm telling you, this is the truth, okay? Take it or leave it. Humpty Dumpty is the apex dome that falls down and breaks into a million pieces every other cycle. Every other cycle between that, though, it doesn't. It actually floats right above Atlantis, right above Hyperborea, and it's a city floating in the sky, or New Jerusalem. All right, so they kidnap Jack, the scavengers. They pick him up. They take him underground to their secret little hideout. He's tied down to a chair, looking around, and Morgan Freeman. Look up his name. It's very interesting. All these actors, they don't go by their real names, okay? They have stage names, all of them. And then they have another stage name when they're in the movie. But a lot of them are insiders, okay? Their names are highly symbolic to the story I'm sharing with you right now. So we got Morgan Freeman, the man in black. And he says, "You won't get anything from me," Jack says. "My memory's been wiped." And he's like, "Yeah, I know, to protect the security of the mission." So his memory's wiped. That's you. All of you are Everyman Jack, okay? All of you are related. I don't want to get too deep into it. But anyways, all of your memories have been wiped. The good news is you can restore those memories. You can get that information back. I'm trying to help you right now. So Jack looks around. He doesn't think there's any human survivors. And what does he see? Underground, by the way. He's deep underground right now in a shelter. And he sees all these people, all these humans. He says, Morgan Freeman says, "We're not alien, Jack. We're human. Humans surviving an apocalyptic event underground in bunkers." How much you want to bet all these people are rich or were rich before the apocalypse as well, right? Surviving, all the rich people, all the elite surviving in underground bunkers, or the wise people that are, have the foresight to make something like that in the right place. He says, "We need you, Jack, to program your drone and have it carry a nuclear bomb up to the Tet." Now, this is where it gets juicy. They want to go blow up this Tet, this space station, right? That's just hovering up there, sorry. It needs to go right to the center of the Tet. The Tet is the apex dome, okay? You're seeing the Tet image, the circle with the cross on it, reflected off of the apex dome. It reflects the land below, okay? So he's talking about the Tet above, which is the apex dome, the portion of the firmament. They're going to go blow it up. I've talked about this many times. NASA is not just prepping for doomsday. Your governments are not just prepping for doomsday that they're aware of because this doomsday happens. They're trying to initiate it. They're trying to blow up the firmament and depressurize the Earth. Check out some of my videos on my channel. Now, speaking of NASA trying to blow up the firmament, the moon, as I've been saying, I ran into this project, this little pearl. Project A119. What is Project A119? Project A119, also known as a study of lunar research flights, which it's not, was a top secret plan developed by the United States Air Force. The aim of the project was to detonate a nuclear bomb on the moon, to blow up the moon. In 1958, they developed this project, Project A119. It goes on to say the project was never carried out. Do you believe that crap? Do you believe when they tell you, "Oh yeah, it's been declassified. Oh yeah, this huge top secret thing is just no longer secret. It's just kind of old." So they just decided to tell everyone. God, dude, I don't believe any of that. Okay, when they declassify stuff, when they tell you about stuff, they're making up another story to cover it up some more and to try to make you not worry about it. Trust me, they're still doing this. They're still doing what, Jay? They're trying to blow up the moon. They're trying to blow up the firmament. The project was never carried out, being canceled after the Air Force officials decided its risks outweighed its benefits, and because a moon landing would undoubtedly be more popular of an achievement in the eyes of the American and international public alike. People would much rather see us land on the moon and go explore it than blow it up. They were weighing out these two options as far as the official story goes. They went with the moon landing. I guarantee you out there on the other Earths, where there's other timelines that we play out different decisions. They blew it up. Okay. If executed, the plan might have led to a potential militarization of space. No, it would have resulted in the apocalypse. An identical project by the Soviet Union, Project E4, it's hard to see, but it says E4, also never came to fruition due to fears of the warhead falling back on Soviet territory. From the moon? The warhead from the moon is going to fall back down to the Earth on Russia specifically. Unless the moon is actually the firmament and it's really not as far away as people say. So, Project E4, just so you guys know, is your local government's plans to survive nuclear war, nuclear radiation, nuclear fallout, the apocalypse, basically. Underground bunkers and stuff. And they'll also say, oh yeah, we canceled that. It goes on to say about this project, the existence of the U.S. project was revealed in the year 2000 by a former executive at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, Leonard Reifel, who had led the project in 1958. This gets more interesting. Carl Sagan was involved in trying to blow up the moon. A young Carl Sagan was a part of the team that was responsible for predicting the effects of a nuclear explosion in a vacuum and low gravity, and evaluating the scientific value of the project. The relevant documents remained secret for nearly 45 years. Carl Sagan accidentally spilled the beans about the secret government project to blow up the moon. The United States government has never officially acknowledged its involvement in this study. It goes on to say, Soviets planned to commemorate the anniversary of the October Revolution by causing a nuclear explosion on the moon to coincide with a lunar eclipse on the 7th of November. News reports of the rumored launch included mention of targeting the dark side of the Terminator. Project A119 would also consider this boundary as the target for an explosion. Let me explain why this is so important, right? Specifically where they're targeting to like land and go drill and put bombs in the firmament to blow it up, or the moon. They're targeting the dark side of the Terminator. The Terminator line is the edge of the moon. The side that faces us when it's a full moon, the edges all the way around that is where they want to blow up. If the moon is not a sphere and it's actually a dome that's hanging off of the firmament, they want to blow up the edge of the apex dome. And it will fall. Okay? It was also reported that a failure to hit the moon would likely result in the missile returning to the Earth. I don't see how that's possible if the moon is 200 and something thousand miles away, or even near likely. But fine, whatever. That's because they're trying to hit the firmament. Now, it goes on to say, a similar idea, blowing up the moon with nuclear bombs, which I've done videos where I speculated that Starlink is not internet service, that those are bombs. Like, I don't know if you guys remember that, but they're trying to put all those bombs all the way up there. Anyways, a similar idea had been put forward by Edward Teller, the father of the H-bomb, who in February of 1957 proposed the detonation of nuclear devices both on and some distance from the lunar surface to analyze the effects of the explosion. They're trying to blow up the moon. Right now, this is happening. They're telling you this like, oh yeah, but they decided not to. They realized it was dangerous, or, something stupid. No. This is now happening. Cancellation. The project was canceled by the Air Force in January 1959, 10 years before they landed on the moon, and went with that story. seemingly out of fear of the risk to the population if anything went wrong with the launch. Another factor cited by the project leader was the problem of nuclear fallout, which would affect future lunar research projects and moon colonization. So they were worried about fallout. They didn't worry about fallout when they went to Antarctica and tried to blow up the sky. Started in January 1958, it was a part of a series of proposals under the codename E. Project E1 through E4, I believe, entailed plans to reach the moon. Now think about this and think about Project Artemis or Moon Mission Artemis, whatever you want to call it. Think about it, okay? Back in 1958, this was their plan to blow up the moon. E1 entailed plans to reach the moon, to get there, right? Project E2 and E3 involved sending a probe around the far side of the moon to take a series of photographs of the surface. If you're following Project Artemis or whatever, that's the same crap they're doing right now. The final stage of the project, E4, was to be a nuclear strike on the moon as a display of force. As with the American plan, E-series of projects was canceled while it's still in its planning stages due to concerns regarding the safety and the reliability of the launch vehicle. Artemis is doing those exact steps. They just haven't told you about blowing up the moon. I already showed you articles where they're trying to put nuclear devices on the moon, allegedly to like power stuff or whatever. No, they're not. They're going to the firmament and they're taking pictures and they're going to put a nice little circle of Starlink frickin' bombs on the firmament, on the apex dome, and they're going to try to bring New Jerusalem down themselves. Whew, buddy. These are your heroes. This is the same thing they're showing you in the, what was that movie? Where they blew up the meteor. You know what I'm talking about? Armageddon, right? Same thing, except for it's not a moon. It's a comet or, whatever it was. They're showing you the same story over and over. They need to drill in. They need to put these bombs deep. They need to try to blow up the firmament. That's what's happening. They did that also with Operation Argus, trying to blow up the sky. Operation Argus, 1958, same exact time frame. Defense Nuclear Agency, United States of America. United States atmospheric nuclear weapons tests in the atmosphere. Why? God, why would you blow up an alleged, I'm not even saying, but let's just suppose that nuclear bombs are real. Some people don't think they are. Let's just say they are and perform a thought experiment. Why on earth would you blow one up in the sky where it obviously can catch the winds and bring nuclear, stuff to your local hometown? Here's a picture of them blowing up the sky. You can't see the buildings on the bottom right here, but that's buildings. That's them blowing up the sky up there. Operation Fishbowl, where they blew up the fishbowl. They're trying to blow up the firmament. They went way out to Antarctica to do this because the dome comes down on the sides. It's easier to try to blow up the sides. However, the sides are the strongest part of the dome. They're not going to be able to blow up the dome from the sides. They have to blow up the apex dome. That's the weak point. It's got all those little domes in it, those little weak spots, like I showed you guys earlier, those craters and stuff. Now, the existence of Project A119 remained largely secret until the mid-1990s. This is the part where you learn Carl Sagan told on everybody on accident, allegedly. When writer Mr. Davidson discovered the story, researching the life of Carl Sagan for a biography, Sagan's involvement with the project was apparent from his application for an academic scholarship at the Miller Institute of University of California, Berkeley in 1959. In the application, Sagan gave details of the project research, which Davidson felt constituted a violation of national security. The leak consisted of Sagan revealing the titles of two classified papers from the A119 project. The 1958 paper, Possible Contribution of Lunar Nuclear Weapons Detonations to the Solution of Some Problems in Planetary Astronomy, and the 1959 paper, Radiological Contamination of the Moon by Nuclear Weapons Detonations, a 1958 paper titled Cosmic Radiation and Lunar Radioactivity. They were trying to blow up the moon. Carl Sagan was a part of their little inner circle of top secret information. Now think about that. Do you think Carl Sagan, as a mascot for mainstream academics and astronomy, is telling you all the truth? He's a government agent. And he literally was a whistleblower on accident, allegedly, and let the secret out that they're trying to shoot bombs into the moon and blow up the moon. That's this project, a secret government project. So that's what they're showing you in this movie, why the moon is always blown up and why it is usually human beings that are responsible for blowing up the moon. Project A119. Interesting. Now, I ask it about Project E4, which is the Russian equivalent, and it says it was a project in the Cold War. That is an interesting name. The war against the cold, the firmament, which is made of ice, right? Designed for a post-nuclear attack survival of federal leadership. That's what this Project E4 was all about. It's so that there could, just like in the Fallout video game or the Fallout TV series, they wanted leadership to survive. They wanted there to be overseers, which is what they call them in like bosses, your governments. They want the government to survive. Planned rapid evacuation of civilian government from Washington, D.C., relocation to hardened, secret underground facilities, exactly like the movie Greenland. Strongly associated with Mount Weather Civilian Command Center, and parallel to military sites like Raven Rock, emphasized redundant communications and sealed infrastructure, underground vaults for hiding out in the apocalypse. NASA are doomsday preppers. All of your space agencies are doomsday preppers. They're just way ahead of all of you. Here's that video I was telling you about, Starlink actually carrying nukes instead of internet Wi-Fi that you can run and try to catch up to or whatever. All right, back to the movie. Radiation zones. Morgan Freeman tells them, if you're looking for the truth, that's where you'll find it, in the radiation zones, right? Well, that is where you will find the truth, is in the radiation zones of the Earth, the alleged radiation zones. So he goes to the radiation zone. He passes this bridge. Obviously, it sank down into the Earth, as it shows you all this desert sand and stuff. Like I said, the radiation zone, the actual real radiation zone after the apocalypse, if you live in the Garden of Eden, you will be protected from radiation. If you live just outside of the Garden of Eden, you will be exposed. It won't kill you. You'll actually keep living for a very long time because of the ambient electrical atmosphere that will stimulate your collagen, your elastin, and, rid your body of harmful germs and stuff like that. I forgot, my vocabulary is escaping me right now. But anyways, you'll live for a very long time, but you'll be degrading too. Your body will keep regenerating skin, but it will be losing it in different places, like your nose, how we talked about with the ghouls and the, walking people who are not zombies because they didn't die, but they look like zombies. That's what constant radiation exposure and radiation sickness can do to you if it doesn't, if your body is also fighting it with cellular regeneration. That's what happens. And that's just outside of the Garden of Eden. That's the radiation zone. That's the real radiation zone. There is that barrier, that electromagnetic plasma dome that goes over Eden that's spinning around. And because it's spinning, it's throwing off what's called synchrotron radiation, which is the X-rays coming off of the Garden of Eden, basically. So that's why the dog people and stuff live outside of the Garden of Eden, according to the Bible. Mutants, basically. Now, we get back to the tower, okay? The tower symbolism, they go right back to the Empire State Building. He says another day in paradise. This is another reference telling you where they are symbolically in paradise. They went to the tower, to Rupus Nigra, to the satellite antenna of the world. She says it was right here, Jack. She's having a little moment because she's actually his wife from a prior life, okay? From before the apocalypse. Because his memory was wiped, he doesn't remember his wife. Now we learn Jack and Jill are married, okay? It was right here. You said, look through here and I'll show you the future. Jack tells his wife, Jill, look through here and I'll show you the future. And what does he do? And I held up a ring, he says. And he holds up a little wedding ring, right? Exactly how we talked about earlier. Jack, being the beam of light that shoots out of Mount Meru at the center of the world, has to hold up that inverted dome, that circle in the sky, just as Hercules and Atlas, a type of Samson, pushing the columns and the pillars and stuff. This is him holding up the sky. He doesn't hold up the earth. He holds up the apex dome, which is responsible for creating the stars. That's why there's constellations in this dome. Sometimes people make it a sphere, but this is him holding up the ring, which is the apex dome of the earth, which is between two pillars of light, the anode and the cathode. Just like I said, these are the lion's gate. Positive, negative, boy, girl, Jack and Jill, husband and wife, whatever. 101, the place where it all starts, the beginning, 101. Room 101. There's a medieval drawing of giant freaking broccoli, somebody holding up the sky. I don't know if that's Jesus or not, but he's holding up the sky. This is seen in ancient Egyptian mythology. Jack holding up the ring. Same thing. This is, I forget what this is from. Looks like Native American. Here's a petroglyph of the person, this sky figure, and the ring up above him, the concentric circles and stuff, and here's plasma and all this stuff. Here's, again, the weird human. This is Jack, okay, and he's holding the ring. Jack is headless, okay, like the actual plasma, it has arms that reach out, but the head is disconnected from that beam of plasma because the head is way up and it's a part of the firmament. So people will look up and see this concentric ring up in the sky and they'll think it's the head of this stick figure in the sky. Here's the stick figure again with the ring above it, the one ring to rule them all. Here's, symbolically Jack holding up the ring. This is what people will see and etch in rock. Here's another version of it. This is also in your pop culture, modern creepypasta, siren head, lamp head, stuff like that. Then here it is in the movie, Jack holding up the ring. And this is more of like a golden age kind of a glow. Now we have these three balls that start chasing after Jack. They're three drones. They're three balls in the sky. As they chase them, they show you the frilly clouds, right? And these three balls that are going after Jack that seem to be some kind of a danger to him. These are your deadlights. If you look inside of Pennywise's mouth when he opens it up and people start floating, this is what they see. You're looking into the mouth of Pennywise. I'm just using some pop culture references, but these three balls start chasing Jack in the movie, and he goes through this lightning storm hoping that the electricity will bring them down, but it doesn't. But they show you the connection. These are ball lightning, okay? Or they can be a form of ball lightning. These three balls that are seen in the sky. In Indian myths and legends, they have a story called Tripura of the three floating cities. And when those three cities line up during this conjunction, this arrow shoots up through them and it causes the apocalypse, basically. So we've got these three balls. Oftentimes they're drawn in a triangular shape on purpose to make the delta, to show you their association with these three circles being seen high up in the atmosphere during this apocalyptic event. Here they are again chasing him, so they come down from up there and they pose a threat. This is from the Book of Miracles as well in the Middle Ages, where they show you the frilly clouds, the opening in the sky, the light on the other side, and these three balls of light. Those same balls of light are depicted in alchemical drawings, where they can show you this opening in the sky with these three balls of light inside of them. Here they are again. Here they are as little baby heads or cherubs with the frilly clouds around, and this is the tree of life. They're directly above. Here it is again in some sort of medieval drawing. This is supposed to be like the Jesus and the 12 disciples. This is the day of Pentecost, but this is the apex dome above with these 3 circles on it, which personally I think are just reflections of the anode, cathode, and Mount Meru lights below it, but I'm not 100% sure. 88 symbolism, the three balls that basically make the flux capacitor. These same 3 balls in the Book of Miracle are described as like coming down and wandering on the surface, just like they were chasing Jack. The 3-ball symbolism is where you get the pawn shops. All of these pawn shops use this collectively across the world as their symbol. 3 golden spheres, 3 golden balls as a pawn shop. Why? Because the traders, the original one, you can say trader or traitor, it doesn't matter, it's the same thing. Okay? They're the ones trying to come up in the world. They're trying to one up you so they can get rich. They're going to trade you something less valuable for something more valuable. They're going to trade you something worthless for something that is of worth. These are the places where the pawns shop. You're the pawn. This is where you go in and you shop. And you're not the king. You're going to go shop. You're going to go give somebody something valuable, and they're going to give you something crap in return, which is little value to exchange. These are the exchanges. This is how the world was taken over. These people at the center of the world, the pirates, the Vikings, like I said, they went around trading things. They didn't have stuff of substance. They used their knowledge for living hundreds of years in Hyperborea to come up in the world and take over. Anyways, so Jack is flying. He sees the radiation zone warning. He says, don't worry, we're going to stay out of the radiation zone. But his ship gets attacked and he crashes into the radiation zone, which you can see is all desert. This is just outside of the Garden of Eden, symbolically speaking. The Arctic Ocean will be gone one day. The atmosphere depressurizes, buoyancy increases, and this is what will be left behind. Desert. An electrified desert, but a desert nonetheless. A desert full of demons and magical entities and apparitions and what do you call it when you see something that's not there in the desert? Like when you see water or whatever. Anyways, so he gets out, he climbs up through the desert, he's looking around and he sees someone else going to repair that drone that just crashed into him. So he's like, no, don't touch the drone. And he rushes over. And when he sees the guy, he realizes it's himself he's looking at. He is a clone. He's now starting to realize Jack is a clone, and there's a whole bunch of these little clones on Earth that don't realize that they're clones. They don't know that there's a copy of one of them. Have you guys ever seen The Fittest Flat Earther? I am not promoting his channel at all because I think it's a terrible truth-seeking channel. Sorry, I'm not. That's just, I think it's terrible. But anyways, he's really popular. He has like 1 million subscribers on Facebook, and he's popular for showing you guys people who look like other people. And he'll make the claim that it's the same person and they're all in the Illuminati and they're all, like reptilian trying to take over the world or whatever. They are doppelgangers. They share the same DNA. Some of these dudes, like Ali and Will Smith, okay, like he made a video trying to say they're the same dude. They literally coexist at the same time on the same place, so they're not the same dude. I made a video talking about how your DNA is on repeat. It's on a cycle. Your exact DNA will pop up in this world if the population gets too high. Because there's a limited number of versions or variants of us that can be made through DNA. Okay? And, there's a version of me out there. There's people look just like me. I took the Fittest Flat Earther's picture and I put it into a website where it will search the exact structure of his face. And I pulled up about 20 people that look exactly like him. I could easily make a TikTok video saying, look, guys, do you really think that this is a real human? Or do you think he's actually, I could do that. I'm not going to. But my point is clones, DNA, repeating itself. I believe that there are underground facilities where they have collected everyone's DNA from across the earth, making different excuses from criminals having to submit their DNA to pandemics and people needing their DNA samples and all this stuff. They're collecting all of your DNA, and they go underground and they just make people. They make copies of you over and over again. That's a theory. That's one of my theories that I have, and I feel pretty strongly about it. Anyways, he takes Jill to basically the Garden of Eden, his little spot, his little perfect paradise in the post-apocalyptic world, where there's a lake. And she says, remember a long time ago, you said when it was all over, you'd build me a house on a lake. Jack and Jill, the house on the lake. This is the house on the lake. That's the Tet. That's the circular land. This is the house. This is the temple of God. This is the throne of God, the seat of God, the throne. You know what I mean? Where God sits and rests, or the God of this world, the energy of this world that comes up into our world. This is the lake. This is the lake house. And it's all right there. And the world would forget about us, she says. The world would forget about all of this land, the cosmology, the electromagnetic features of the geography of the earth, the electromagnetic currents, the plasma inundated atmosphere, robot rebellions, cloning people, nations underground, mutants on the outside of Eden, all of it people would forget about. But they haven't, actually. They haven't completely forgotten about it, because as we see, here it is. There it is right there for us to enjoy. In our collective subconscious, coming out through creative mediums. Because the world is so left-brained right now, when we use the right brain, secrets start to be exposed. He says Morgan Freeman's talking to him now, because now they're going to actually use Jack to blow up the moon. All right. Morgan Freeman says, I saw the moon get taken out. This was before the apocalypse. Right up there in the night sky, saw the moon get taken out. I couldn't believe it. After that, nature took over. There's bedrock around Chicago. So we spared the worst of the waves and the quakes. He's from Chicago. He survived because he lived in or on bedrock. Look up this breakdown that I did on the Flintstones. This is in my playlist, like random topics or something, or maybe it's Plasma Apocalypse. I can't remember. It's called Flintstones, Apocalypse Survivors. That's how they survived. They're the modern family that survived an apocalyptic event because they lived on bedrock. They didn't sink down with everything else. They didn't get sucked up into the sky. They were in their houses. They stayed safe. They were in bunkers. They're rich. If you watch this show, they have their secret societies, their Buffalo tribe or whatever it is, all that stuff. They're showing you the truth. 50 years of watching those hydro rigs, he says, suck our planet dry. Now that's just an interesting correlation. There's a correlation between 50 years and the Jubilee of antiquity. A Jubilee was the year of freedom, and it happened every 50 years in antiquity. Now, if time was much longer, because I believe time is speeding up these days compared to how long a year was in antiquity, 50 years might have been closer to 500 years, going all the way back to the ancient times. And that just happens to be the length of time that people saw the phoenix live and die every 500 years. Interesting. So Jack takes this little coffin, this little capsule, this little life capsule, and he decides he's going to help them out. So he loads it up onto a spaceship and he flies off to the Tet. Right? We still don't know what the Tet is. We've been told that that's where all the humans are, but it's not. They know that the Tet is this AI, this robots, basically. Those are the aliens, and that's not human beings at all. And those are the ones that destroyed the moon, etc. Okay? So he's going to go up to the Tet, and he's going to blow it up from the inside with the nuclear bomb. Just like in Independence Day, this is the mothership. This is the dome. That's the apex dome. It's just upside down. Okay? This is the new Independence Day. When this is a dome, this is the mothership, is the dome up there. People will see it and think it's a mothership spacecraft. I swear to God, they will. Because they don't understand that there's a firmament. And they don't understand that portion of it's drooping down. That is what they're showing you in Independence Day. And that's why it's got the 4 lines, the circle in the middle. There's even some Mesopotamian artwork, to the ancient moon gods and sun gods and stuff like that. But they're showing you the truth in the movies. They plan to, NASA is planning to blow up the firmament. That's what this was about. That's what this whole scene was about. They're going to go up there. They're going to plant their nuclear bomb. They're going to blow up the moon to try to save the world in their minds. Because the longer you wait, the more pressure develops and the worse the apocalypse is going to be. Because there's going to be way more depressurization. So he's in that little diamond shape entrance, right? So it opens up into that flux capacitor looking shape. He goes through it into the mothership. Jack's looking around and he sees clones of himself all over the place. All these different clones. Now, technically, in our cosmology, from my perspective, he just went out of the firmament. If he's in outer space, he left Earth, right? If he left Earth, this is what space should look like, is a honeycomb pattern, I believe, okay? I think space is actually an enclosed area as well, and that we live inside of the mind of God, and once we open up the firmament, it will not be space. It will be the fullness, and you will see caverns of worlds and lights, glowing ambient lights and all kinds of stuff. It'll be full of stuff, but it'll probably look like this with little cave systems and like a honeycomb, basically. But inside of those, we have clones. So if these do represent little worlds out there in the fractal verse beyond our dome, those worlds have the same genetic pattern. So we have Earth number 1, Earth number 2, Earth number 3, Earth number 4. And they all have a repeating cycle of DNA, the same as this world does. And that means there's a JayDreamerZ out there on world Earth number 4, Earth number 8, Earth number 452 or whatever. You see what I mean? Just replicating over and over and over and over and over. Almost like a simulation. Almost like you're trying to get all of the possible scenarios, all of the possible decisions. But anyways, I'm getting too deep. Let's continue on. So he looks into these little worlds through their glass dome tops, and he sees them. He sees life, all the clones and stuff, and it's just blowing his mind. And then he gets to the alien in charge, which is basically a gigantic computer with a red eyeball. And the computer's name is Sally. I'll get to that in a minute. She says, "Welcome home, Jack." And she says, "Jack, you're doing the right thing." The computer thinks Jack is, by the way, this is the mothership. That energy above, the moon energy, is female. It's feminine, and therefore it's the mother energy. So mother spider, grandmother spider, all the mother stuff, Jason Voorhees and his mother manipulating his mind and stuff, all of that is the energy from above. You can also see Earth as Mother Earth. I get that, but this is all, I'm talking about the apex dome. She said, "Jack, you're doing the right thing." She thinks that he's bringing back Jill, that Jill's in that coffin because she wants to kill Jill, but he's not. He says, "I'm going to tell you a story from Rome, a city that you destroyed." Now, this is interesting. Rome was destroyed by this, okay? This is not modern Rome in Italy. This is ancient Rome, which is a portion of that land at the center of the earth. It's a portion. Rome, there's an ancient Rome, there's an ancient Greece. None of them are the modern cities where they are now. Jerusalem, not the modern city where it is now. All these places existed at the North Pole. And then the survivors left and they renamed all the places where they settled as they took over the rest of the world. Rome, a city that you destroyed. And it's called Rome because they lived under the ram's horns or whatever. They worshiped the ram. Roma, ram, same thing. "Jack, you're doing the right thing." Sally says that. So let's see why they called her Sally and what Sally's relationship was with the moon. To do this, we look up something called the Sally Loon Bun. Sally Loon Bun. It's just a bun called the Sally Loon, but nobody knows why it's called the Sally Loon. But if you look up the origin of Sally Loon buns are obscure. One theory is that it's an Anglicanization of Soleil et Lune, which is French for sun and moon. Sun and moon buns. Sally Loon buns. Sally, the AI that basically represents the apex dome, which, by the way, this is off topic, but it's interesting. In Greek, that's the shield of Zeus, and the shield of Zeus was spelled A-I-X. That might be of interest to some of you. You're welcome. Anyways, Sally Loon buns, Soleil et Lune. Sun and moon buns. Now, in the Bible, it says the sons gather wood, the fathers light the fire, and the women knead the dough to make cakes, buns, for the queen of heaven, the mother, the moon. They pour out drink offerings to other gods to provoke me to anger. Cakes for the queen of heaven. Sally Lune cakes. Sally moon cakes. Sun and moon cakes. That apex dome is shown throughout all of antiquity as having the sun and the moon inside of it. Portrayed as being inside of it. They're not inside of it. It's creating them. It's projecting them into our atmosphere, just like the stars. Excuse me. I could get into the concept that they call this the Odyssey, the spaceship's Odyssey, but that's a long story. I don't want to get into that. So he opens it up and you think that it's going to be Jill, but it's not. It's Morgan Freeman. He's about to die. So he decided to bring up this nuclear bomb that they made from the remnants of the spaceship that crashed. So it literally says NASA on this nuclear bomb that they put symbolically on the moon. Sally Lune, the moon, the apex dome, the Delta Force, the Stargate. Do you see? Please tell me you understand the connections I'm making. I'm telling you point blank, NASA's going to blow up the moon. Okay? Is that good? Elon and NASA are going to blow up the moon together. She says, I created you, Jack. Now, if she represents the hole in the sky, the one eye symbolism, right? This is where you get the one eye symbolism from, because that's the apex dome and it glows red because there's red hydrogen on the other side. She did technically create that blue beam of energy, because once that opens up, once the firmament opens up, which is what this is, the mother gives birth to the light. So because this was destroyed, the light is now created because all the gases are depressurizing the inner earth too, and it creates those pillars of light, or Jack's beanstalk, or the reed that Native Americans took from one world to the other world. And you know what I mean? So she did technically create Jack, or have a hand in his creation, I should say. She says, I am your God. So this is sort of like the sky god, the all-seeing eye god up in the sky, negative energy, negatively charged energy, red symbolism, red eye, one eye. And he says, F you, Sally. And he's going to, so if he represents the blue beam, like I said, people will, there's two cycles. One cycle, people see this blue beam emerge from the earth, and then the apocalypse stops. So it's seen as a savior. It's seen as this sword that strikes the dragon or the kraken in its heart. And that completes this electromagnetic reversal of the polarity of our world, which means the magnetic dome goes back up over the earth and the plasma can no longer come in, and the apocalypse is over. So this beam of light, aka Jack, shining up, growing up from the center of the earth as the world tree, people see that and they associate it with the apocalypse ending. Inversely, every other cycle, it dies, it retracts, it goes back into the earth to be the black hole sun, or the smoky god inside of the earth, as the earth charges energy, and it's seen as dying during an apocalyptic event. And it leaves an afterglow in its same shape, or a spirit form, an afterglow up in the air, because the air is still charged where it once was. And when the atmosphere depressurizes, that afterglow, the spirit, gets sucked up out of our earth, and you have Jesus rising up into the heavens, etc. So they turn on the detonator, they sacrifice themselves, and they blow up basically the moon, okay, which is the spaceship, symbolically. This satellite, the Earth satellite, it blows up. And down here on the ground, just like in Star Wars and stuff, they see this huge explosion in the sky. This is NASA and them. They're all going to high-five each other, okay? They're all going to do what they do in the movies. Elon Musk's going to high-five his people. NASA's going to high-five their people. Look, there's NASA right there watching it, crying at how beautiful it is. Boom. The Ewoks are all going to dance, Anyways, we go back to the Garden of Eden, which is this, you can clearly see the valley, right? This is obviously the Garden of Eden. This little shack that Jack had built, the house that Jack built. And he just sacrificed himself. But remember, he has all these clones. So she's tending to the garden as Eve, his wife would. They show you it's a garden. They don't have to have tomatoes growing. It's just a movie. And she looks up from her gardening and she sees a kid, and then more people are all starting to flood here. These are the people who see the beacon. They see the sign, they waited for it, and they returned to Hyperborea as I describe in my books. So all these nomads, all these travelers, this is the great exodus. These are people from different countries around the world who will return to Hyperborea. They will come here to the Garden of Eden. And she sees Jack, or a clone of Jack, who's now wearing the number 5-2, which is 7, which represents the Septentrion, which is the Arctic region, and the 7 mountains that will grow back up out of the Arctic Ocean. And she sees Jack reincarnated. It's his clone, right? But now she gets to just pretend that he's the other Jack. And he says, I am him. I am Jack Harper, and I am home. So they all return to Hyperborea. They live in the Garden of Eden, happily ever after. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you guys. If you want to support my work, go to my Patreon, where you can join the chat and upload pictures and share, your thoughts about my channel, my work, other ideas you guys might have. And check out my website, JayDreamerZ.com. Until next time, good vibes and goodbye.